Hey now, Tough Skin Soft Heart family. Welcome to another edition of Tough Skin Soft Heart. Hey now, Tough Skin Soft Heart family. I am so grateful that we are gathering. Hey now, Tough Skin Soft Heart family. Welcome back to another episode. And really just welcome back to our community table. Hey now, Tough Skin Soft Heart family. Welcome to another edition of the Tough Skin Soft Heart podcast. This is your space for recharging, recovering. It's a restorative rest space. It's where we have conversations. One, to peel back the layers, to go behind the veil and under the hood of our lives as hope dealers, as difference makers, as change agents. We know that we as human beings are more important than the work of our hands. And so this is our time where we peel back the titles, the mantles, the roles of responsibility and accountability that we manage, we navigate, we don, we wear, we bear the blessing and the burden of every single day. And we create space for intentional pause, intentional restorative rest, because we've been living long enough, you and I, to understand that when we rest, the world gets our best. And so this podcast is just an extension of that emotional well-being practice that we know is critical to our leadership longevity. So whether this is your very first podcast, we say, come on in, welcome. You are at home. You are amongst friends, people that care about you holistically. And if you are an OG, a veteran of the podcast, a veteran of this Tough Skin Soft Heart community and family, I just thank you for being here for season 3. Y'all, we're more than halfway through season 3. Season 3 ends in May, y'all. It's hard to believe we only have just a few weeks left in our time together for season 3, but this has been so good. It's been good to my soul. I love hearing your testimonials of how each episode has been a source of reflection, introspection, some ahas and oh my's in your journey. So that always, keep those reviews coming, keep those DMs coming, keep those reflections coming. It's been so great for me. It helps me to grow stronger, better, and wiser in how I think about you and how I look to serve you. So today, y'all, we have a good one. And really, today's conversation was inspired by a conversation that I was engaged in on Twitter not too long ago. And it started with the prompt. Someone that I'm connected to there, a thought leader I'm connected to there, posed a question that just stayed on replay. And then I responded and some other folks responded. And before we knew it, it was a full day discussion. And I want to bring that conversation into our community by asking you the same question. So here it is. What is one piece of advice you regret not listening to? You thought I was going to say something different, didn't you? Because we always talk about advice in the positive, don't we? We will say things like, what's one piece of advice you would go back and give to your younger self? Or what is one piece of advice that you would tell yourself now? But the truth of the matter is, if we were honest, some of the advice that we give today is not because it was advice that we lived and leaned into. Some of the best advice we're able to give today in our spaces of leadership, whether that's in your family, marketplace, or community, is because of the oops upside the head moments that you had because you didn't listen to some good advice that you had. And maybe there were some additional bumps in the road or some additional consequences or some failures, some realities that came from that, some lessons, right? And so that question just really got me just to thinking. So the question is again, what is one piece of advice you regret not listening to, not taking heed to? So later in the day, so I was in this Twitterverse conversation earlier in the day, and then later in the day, I had the privilege of being a part of a video series of interviews between an existing Girl Scout and a previous Girl Scout. And it was so beautiful. I met a beautiful Girl Scout who's 11 years old named Cordelia, and she interviewed me because once a Girl Scout, always a Girl Scout. And your girl was a Girl Scout from the 3rd grade until the 9th grade. I was in Troop 752 in Detroit, Michigan. And my troop leader was Mrs. Patricia Brown, and she was absolutely amazing. I thought that the sun rose and set on Lady Patricia herself. She was such a dynamic leader. She taught me so much in my years of being a Girl Scout. I think one of the things that she was really adamant about, she was the very first Black female attorney that I had ever met. And she would always use her leadership in our life as our troop leader to show us that we belonged in places with positional power. That we, not just as women, but as, Black and brown little girls, that we belonged in spaces where, a mantle of leadership came with positional power. And so it was such a beautiful 360 moment to be interviewed by Cordelia as she asked me about my lived experience being a Girl Scout in Troop 752 under the illustrious leadership of Mrs. Patricia Brown. And there was a point where she asked me a question about my journey as a Girl Scout. And her question intersected with the prompt from earlier in the day in the Twitterverse around what was one piece of advice I regretted not listening to or not adhering to. So I have a story to tell y'all. I loved being a Girl Scout. Everything about Girl Scouts, from the service component to even the sales component to even getting badges. I loved the community of Girl Scouts I belonged to. It was connected through my church, but we drew kids from the neighborhood. So I grew up on the east side of the city of Detroit. So there were, friends that were there from, just growing up in the neighborhood to friends in church. It was just this beautiful hodgepodge of connectivity and community for me. And so every year, usually once a year, the pastor of my church growing up would have our troop come up and stand before the congregation, and he'd talk about the amazing things that we were doing and the leadership development that was occurring in our lives in conjunction with being Girl Scouts. And it also was a way for folks within the congregation to, sow through their giving into the longevity of our troop. And so, when I was a younger Girl Scout all the way to being a cadet, I used to look forward to this Sunday where we would be able to showcase our lived experiences and leadership lessons as Girl Scouts. So I did that for 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, right before 9th grade. Now, back in the day, if you Google what a Girl Scout cadet uniform looked like back in 1990, y'all, we would not be in Fashion Nova, right? It was not fashionable. We were still wearing the socks up to the knee with tassels around them with little berets. It took a little bit for fashion to connect with the service of being a Girl Scout. And so I can remember the Sunday very clearly. We would line up and we would come up to the podium. We'd go onto the stage. And at that time, because I was going into high school, all of the upper middle school and high schoolers would sit in service. We would go to Sunday school, but then we would sit in service for the sermon portion of the service. And so there was this little boy, y'all, that I liked in my Sunday school class, and he was like a 10th grader. And, we're standing up there in our little uniforms, which I already told y'all were not the hottest thing going. And I could see him along with some of his friends and my friends from Sunday school. And they were pointing at us and laughing at our uniforms. And all of a sudden, something that I drew such great and immense pride in, I found myself suddenly embarrassed and ashamed. At that moment, the rest of the time on stage was like white noise. I don't remember a thing. I just remember walking down the steps and going back to my seat, and I didn't say anything else that day. After church, we went home, and I remember going into my bedroom. I took off my sash with all of the badges that I had earned. I took off my beret, my socks, my tassel, my white button-down shirt, my blue vest because I was a cadet. I folded it up ceremoniously. I put it in the far reaches of my closet, and I shut the door. And I never went back to Girl Scouts another day. I remember my mom talking to me about it because for me it was a death. I mean, I'm not I use this analogy because I think it will help with the visual story. If you've ever been to a funeral service where they honor a fallen soldier and how they intentionally fold the flag with certain folds to commemorate that experience. And y'all, I had my own death to a season of my life in the way that I folded up that uniform and placed it in the far reaches of my closet. I never talked to Mrs. Brown about it. I just remember telling my mom, I'm done. And she was like, Shannon, it's over a little boy. You're not going to remember him in 10 years. And this is something that you love. And you're about to give up something you love over a possible crush. And I said, Mom, I'm not going back. Mrs. Brown was devastated. I was devastated, but the approval of my peers was more important than what I loved. So you fast forward, I start ninth grade, and my mom would just shake her head because I used to have troop meetings on Tuesdays, and she'd look at me and shake her head. But I think she knew it was going to be a teachable moment in my life. And so fast forward, 3 months later, I get this letter in the mail from the Girl Scouts headquarters in the city of Detroit. I had been selected as one of the Girl Scouts of Achievement in our region, and I was eligible to win a full ride scholarship to college. Many of you have heard me tell this story that I knew early on from my oldest sister's experience that if I was going to go to college, it was going to come through either an academic scholarship, some type of scholarship. And so I applied, submitted everything. Even Mrs. Brown was willing to do a recommendation for me because she just knew, like, you deserve this honor. You should receive this honor. You all, a few months later, I got another letter. They wrote to inform me with regret that I was unable to access the scholarship because you needed to be a Girl Scout for at least 6 years. And I stopped short 3 months before my 6th year. So I missed out on a full ride scholarship to college from my years of service in Girl Scouts over people pleasing. This crush became a crush, right? And so I was sharing this story with Cordelia in our conversation because the one piece of advice I regret not taking was wisdom that my mom tried to share about me, wisdom that my mom tried to share with me in that moment about the dangers of people pleasing and the dangers of dying to yourself because you have a crush on somebody, you like them, you are attracted to them. She was trying to teach me how to choose me. And it would be years later before I would really learn that lesson in full. And quite honestly, learning how to choose us is a perpetual lesson that we continue to learn in different seasons of our lives in different ways. And so what started off as this Twitterverse conversation, then morphing into this Girl Scout interview, really became a reflection on the mind of a finisher yet again. Because there are going to be people that have something to say about you, something to say about something that you love and you're passionate about. And we have to be able to shelve other people's opinion in order to be authentically who we were supposed to be and what brings us joy. And so what a great reflection. I'll just share that question with you. And I hope that as you go about your day or go about your evening, I don't know if you're listening in the cool of the day or the cool down of your day. I hope this is one of the episodes where you're listening while you have your babies in the car, or you're taking them to school, or maybe they are learning how to drive, so they're driving you around. Listen, go back and revisit it. What is that one piece of advice that you regret not listening to? And the truth is, it's never too late to go back and listen, to apply it to our wisdom toolbox even now. Y'all, can you believe I can't remember that little boy's name? I have been trying all week. I've remembered friends and who he was sitting with, but I cannot remember his name. Right? All upset. Like, girl, you missed out on that moment. But I do have to tell you, thank goodness for second chances. I did end up getting a full ride to undergrad from another opportunity. But man, I always had 3 jobs in undergrad. How much freer I could have been in my undergrad career with that extra scholarship being a return check to me had I been confident to go forward boldly. Wisdom, right? That's our time, y'all. 15 minutes is here and gone. Listen, it's never too late. Go back and revisit and then apply that wisdom to your life. I'm thinking of you. Until next time.
Podcasts during the month of March are sponsored in part by University of Michigan Health West. University of Michigan Health West is passionate about providing leading women's healthcare services for every woman at every stage of life. They offer compassionate care and expertise close to home, yet far from ordinary. For more information, visit uofmhealthwest.org.